Hello and welcome to Quassi's Bell Tower with your host, Quassi. And today we are going to make something from the video game God of War. So what we're going to make today is we're going to make what I call the chain ladder. I don't know if that's the proper name for it, but that's the name I'm going to use. So we're going to make that, so let's get to it. So before we get going on this build, I want to explain a few things. This chain ladder now, in the game, it has some of the links or the anchors or whatever the chain is on. It's all, some of them are faded and worn out and chipped away. Some of them are like almost pristine and brand new. So when you're making this craft, you're going to have to decide if you want it to be beat up or worn out, or if you want it to look pristine or whatever else. So that's going to be your decision. Making this craft, I've learned that it's such a small piece out of everything else that you're going to be making that it's probably going to get some dings and some, it's going to get beat up a little. So you're probably going to want to go more with the aged look. So let's get to it, guys, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So first of all, we're going to be using a scrap piece of foam here. This is 5/8 in width from here to here. I would go just a hair bit over if you're using your Peroxon thermal cutter, just so you don't melt too much off. I know if you get the right temperature, it'll work just fine, but I just went a hair over 5/8. The thickness of this is 1/4 inch, and then when we cut this down, it will be 1 3/8 in height. So we'll do that. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to use one of these tools right here. This is a leather hole puncher, and I got this in a set of 10. The sizes go from 1 millimeter to 10 millimeter, if I'm correct. Or is it centimeters? Well, anyways, I'll put the link in the bottom so you guys can take a look at it. It was like under $25 for these. This is great for cutting out circles. So I'll show you how that's done. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our foam, and I am going to mark the center of this, which is going to be just past the 1/4 mark. It'll be the 5/16 mark, and I'll just mark that for it being the center. And then I will do the same things on the side, on both sides. I will mark it at the 5/16 mark. Now I'm going to take my 7 millimeter leather puncher, hole puncher, and try to center that up the best I can. And get it as centered as I can before starting to push this through. Now what I'm going to do is just move this back and forth to the left and right and put some pressure on it and try to keep this tool as centered as possible. And it's going to squeak through the foam, but no big deal. And you just keep going until you know you're through. You'll know because it'll stop squeaking. Then you just pull it back out. Take some kind of long skinny tool of some sort to pop the foam out. And then what I'll do is, this is a little rounded on the edge. I will turn it the other way because this is so flush here now that I will just take this tool and pop this back through the other way and just gently go back and forth with it just to help kind of round out that edge there. And then it'll make it look exactly the same. So after that, and I got my circle drawn out, I want to round off these edges, and I want to round it off as much as I can. And I'm just going to take some 220 grit sandpaper, and I am just going to lightly sand this down and kind of round it off the best I can. And you do this to both sides, and you'll just do this until it looks right to you. You don't want to get it to be too thin, but you'll know the look when you see it. This will take a little while, so I'll be right back with you guys. Now that I have that rounded off to a look I like, we are going to take our circle template and we are going to draw some circles. So the first one I will be using will be one where I have to draw a circle with just on the edge, basically on the circle, just on the outside of it. And they just got to find the right size for it. 3/8 does not look that bad. I think I might go with that. Maybe the 332. Let's see. 332. Nah, it's a little too big. We'll go with the 3/8. And I will try to center that up the best I can. And I will gently draw a circle in there as best I can. Not making too many mistakes. And I will kind of push it in there just a little bit to give it an indent. Okay, and then we will go to the 932 circle. I think that will be pretty darn good. And that will be the circle for that. Okay, now that you have your circles done, I'm just going to make sure that I touch them up a little bit. Now we got to make some smaller circles inside these circles. So what I'm going to do is zoom in on this so you guys can see this a little bit better. Okay. So now we will do a very small circle on the very top, on the north. We're going to go north, south, east, west, and then we will do like northeast, northwest, southeast, and southwest. And when you use the smallest circle we have here, which is a 1/16, you'll just try to center that up the best you can. And this is where it gets a little difficult. If you want, you could try. No, that's going to be too big. Let's see. This is the best you guys are going to do. Use that 1/16 circle. Now we will do the northwest one, the northeast one, the southeast one, and the southwest one, or southwest, yeah, southwest. Okay, now within these circles, or not in the circles, but next to the circles, if you want, on the God of War for the chain ladder, there are like these circles, and then there's small circles in between those, and those are like basically the size of a dot. So I'm just going to take my pencil and just push in a little hole. Okay, so now we got that. Now we're going to go back to the circle template again. Okay guys, now there's like two circles under the circle. And I will draw those in. Actually, I'm probably just going to trace this instead. And you have to do this on both sides of this. So don't forget to do that. then I will do one more just underneath that one. If you want to use your template, go for it. I decided just eyeball it myself. It's probably going to be a little off, but nobody's perfect. And then thing you want to do is where you drew that first little half moon circle, basically, is draw a line from that edge and try to do that as straight as you can to the other end here on the side. Which you guys probably, right there, would see it like that. So I will do the same thing on this side. Now we'll draw that through like that. Hopefully you guys are seeing that. Okay, so now I'm going to go do the circle on the other side, and I'll be right back with you guys. Now I zoomed this in the furthest I could. Hopefully you guys can see that. There's one side of it being done, and there's the other side. Yes, there are some imperfections in it, but this is so small, it's hard to get the detail that you want in the styrofoam XPS foam that you're using. But that's about the best I'm going to get it. And like I said, that is why you're probably going to want to go with the rough look, because it's really hard to get that detail. So that's it. Now we're going to work on cutting this down to the right size. The height of this is supposed to be 1 inch and 3/8. So we'll go ahead and get that set up and then make a mark. And that is how tall that will be. And then I will find my square, wherever that is. Which I really don't think I need it on this. But I will do it anyways. And I will try to draw a line on there as straight as I can. Okay, so that is where it's going to get cut off, is there. But now we have to do a few more designs on here, and we got to do like 4 lines. So basically, I can't really give you a measurement of this. You're just going to kind of eyeball it, but you're not going to put it down the center, but you're going to put it off to the left of the center, maybe 1/8. You're just going to go straight up with it. Have that connect to the first circle there. Then you do the other one on the right-handed side of it. And then do another line on the other side here. And one over here. Try to do them as straight as possible. If you want to use a ruler, go for it. I kind of made a goof, and I'm not going to bother. So before I go and do the other side, I am going to go ahead and cut this down the middle and try to make sure it's as straight as possible. And then I would flip it over, and I would just eyeball this and do the same thing. So there we go. That is done almost 100%. Okay, now that we have this tiny little piece done, here comes the next step. And what we need to do is take this toothpick and pop that through there. And we have to do this as gently as we can. So we're going to try to find the center of this circle, which will be really fun. But if you can see any of the lines you might have drawn on the side, you should be able to find it. But you could probably eyeball this pretty good. So just try to find the center of it and slowly push the toothpick through. Slowly. And try to get that centered the best you can. So there it is, right there, all done. Hopefully you guys can see that really well. Okay, for this next step, we're gonna need some cheap chains. I got mine at Walmart for $1, and they're about a 6-foot long chain. I got two different sizes. I got the fine chain, and then I got one of these cheap chains. And this cheap one here, I think is, I almost want to say it's plastic, but it's painted gold, just like that. They don't quite match, but it doesn't matter because you're only going to use like 2 pieces from this whole chain from the bigger one. And I think this is actually just plastic, so you can probably find this on Amazon. Probably not as cheap, but you can look there, eBay, who knows. So what we're gonna do is we are going to have to do some taking apart of this. And what we're just gonna do is I'm gonna take this big piece of chain and I'm just gonna pop this piece off. I'm just gonna, you can bend this with your hand. It's so easy, you just bend this with your fingers. Like I said, these are very easy to bend. And what we're gonna have to do is we have to break at least 2 or 3 links on this. I would go 2, I guess. It really doesn't matter. It's gonna be your preference. And you can basically bend this stuff too with just your fingers. I mean, it's that easy. I'm going to put this one back together the best I can. I wish I had a pair of needle nose pliers. Okay, so I got that there. So basically, I know you guys probably can't see it, but I got the big loop here and then 2 loops of the small chain here. And then I'm going to hook this other part up to this. So this big link will be connected to this big chain, this little chain now. So I don't know if you guys can see this, hopefully you can. But about 15 minutes later and a couple swear words later, I finally got this piece of bigger chain hooked in between here. And that's the only reason we're doing that is because it will make it so much easier to put this toothpick through the bigger loop. I tried to put it through the small ones before and it just split them wide open, so we're gonna go with the bigger one. And if you look at the God of War design of that, that's exactly what they did too. Now that is set, this part here with the 2 small chains will be the back side, and the rest of the length we'll worry about cutting off after we're done doing everything else. We are gonna have to open up this one last link here to put a piece of cardboard or paper in there that is square or diamond shaped. So the next thing we want to do is get some thin MDF board or some cereal box cardboard, you know, that type of cardboard, some small stuff like that, and cut yourself a square 5/16 by 5/16 if you can. So after you cut out your 5/16 by 5/16 square and you found something like a needle or an owl or something to poke a hole through, and you're just going to try to get that hole through. Ain't got to be too beautiful. Then just go through on the other side and push it back through that side if you can. And we got to do this to all 4 corners. Which really, if you don't want to do it on all 4 corners, you really don't have to, because you only need it for the jewelry piece, even though, as you could draw a dot on it if you want, or at least push this through a little bit so you can kind of see that, because this piece of metal, this is kind of like, this keeps the chain, if it breaks, from going for a ride. I think that's what it's designed to do. There's also supposed to be a circle in the middle. I mean, you can draw it out, but if we paint this, which more likely we will, you will probably have to draw or paint some type of circle on it. So when you're done, you should have a square like this with 4 holes and the circle drawn on there. You can paint this or not paint it. It's your decision. More likely you are going to paint it because it's just going to look kind of odd with everything else painted. But there you go with the holes. Just be careful poking the holes through. You don't need to damage your parents' table, so hopefully you got a workspace to use. And then we'll try to put this on the chain and try not to drop a couple more F-bombs or not. So our next step on this is we are going to take the toothpick out of the foam there and let the chain run through so you have some slack here. And what we're going to do is we're going to take that last small link we had, try to open that back up again, and then take this piece of cardboard we did and put it in between the link, and then try to pinch that link down again into one of the holes. Hey, this time I did it without swearing at it. Yay, I did it! Okay, so now we just pull that back through. And then put this toothpick through the big link. Come on. And there we go. Now we have our back piece on here. So now that is completely done, and we can move on to the next step, which is so much easier.